Okay, so Michelle noticed the backdrop that was coming in there. I thought it was pretty cool because it pertains to this book. My question for you all is, have you read or are you familiar with the book of Jonah? Michelle said yes. Levi said yes.
I
Shelley?
have not read it, but I'm familiar with the kids'
Okay,
book.
without got kids, don't ruin it. What is the book of Jonah the most known for? What is most notable about it?
He gets swallowed by the whale.
Okay. Yes, Levi is right. He did.
What did Levi say?
He ran away from God.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to learn a little bit about that today. So we talked about, have you learned about this? And have you heard it referenced in other books of the Bible? Has anyone heard this reference? Miguel, be quiet, please. Has anyone heard this referenced in other books of the Bible?
Yes, you've talked about it.
Okay. What I'm saying is it been referenced by other people in the Bible?
By other people?
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay. So that's just something to keep in mind. By the way, this book is only 4 chapters. And it's very short. We will get through it in fairly quickly here. But it's interesting read as well. So one of the things that I normally do with you guys is I share this slide with you where it talks about author and date. And I tell you guys that it's information that I'm getting from either John MacArthur or some other resource. I get that from this site right here. So you guys are aware. I took a screenshot of it this time, where it shows if you wanted to figure this out, if there was something that was burning in your mind that you wanted to know more data about or wanted to just have more of an understanding, you could go to blueletterbible.org and you could literally click on thousands upon thousands upon thousands of commentaries. I particularly like a select few people because I agree with a lot of the things that they say. And I think that Chuck Misler and Chuck Smith, Skip Heitzig, and John MacArthur do a really good job at compiling data here. So this forward, so to speak, is given to us by John MacArthur. I'm just going to read through it. So the book makes no direct claim regarding authorship. Throughout the book, Jonah is repeatedly referred to in the third person, causing some to search for another author. However, it is not an uncommon Old Testament practice to write in the third person. Furthermore, the autobiographical information revealed within its pages clearly points to Jonah as the author. The first-hand accounts of such unusual events and experiences would be best recounted from the hand of Jonah himself, nor should the introductory verse suggest otherwise. Since other prophets such as Hosea, Joel, Micah, Zephaniah, Haggai, and Zechariah have similar openings. According to 2 Kings 14, Jonah came from Gath-Hepher near Nazareth. The context places him during a long and prosperous reign of Jeroboam from 793 to 758, making him a prophet to the northern tribes just prior to Amos during the first half of the 8th century BC, 760 BC. The Pharisees were wrong. Oh, there's Tatia. The Pharisees were wrong when they said no prophet had arisen out of Galilee. So a lot of scholars bring this up, is when Jesus is being accused amongst the council and the Sanhedrin, Nicodemus, who was the one that came to him at night, says, "Does our law condemn a man before it hears him?" And the leaders in there said, "Are you also from Galilee? Search and show us where any prophet has come out of Galilee," signifying that no one has ever come out of Galilee. And we're learning in 2 Kings, a reference to the book of Jonah, that Jonah himself was a prophet that had come out of that region. So their reference that they had to try and slander Christ as well as Nicodemus was inaccurate. So as a prophet to the 10 northern tribes of Israel, Jonah shares a background and a setting with Amos. The nation enjoyed a time of relative peace and prosperity. Both Syria and Assyria were weak, allowing Jeroboam to enlarge the northern borders of Israel to where they had been in the days of David and Solomon. Spiritually, however, it was a time of poverty. Religion was ritualistic and increasingly idolatrous, and justice had become perverted. Peacetime and wealth had made her bankrupt spiritually, morally, and ethically. As a result, God was to punish her by bringing destruction and captivity from the Assyrians in 722. Nineveh's repentance may have been aided by the 2 plagues, and solar eclipse, preparing them for Jonah's judgment message. So we're going to go ahead and start off with that. That's our background and setting. We have our time. We know a little bit about the author Jonah, where he was from. And let's get into these 4 chapters, if it will allow me to go to the next slide. Now, the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, "Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me." But Jonah arose to flee to Tarshish. From the presence of the Lord, he went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. So you guys see what's here on the map. Someone's done a really good job. By the way, I took all these images from online. They're well done. We could see that he's in that Jerusalem area, Joppa with Gath Hefer, and we can see where Nineveh is in correlation to where Tarshish was. So he's going super far, right? Super far. So, but the Lord sent out a great wind on the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, so that the ship was about to be broken up. Then the mariners were afraid, and every man cried out to his God, and threw the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten the load. But Jonah had gone down into the lowest parts of the ship, had lain down, and was fast asleep. So the captain came to him and said to him, "What do you mean, sleeper? Arise, call on your God. Perhaps your God will consider us, so that we may not perish." So, do you guys recall another account where someone was a great and mighty tempest rose up on the sea, and someone went down into the ship and was asleep? Nope. Yes. Who said that?
Charlie?
Yes, Uncle
Yeah.
Charlie. If you guys remember, that tempest arose and Jesus was asleep in the boat.
Yeah,
And they cried out to him, "Save us, Lord, for we are perishing." He turned around and said, "Wind, go away." Or he said something, he rebuked the wind and the storm, and it went away. And they go, "Who is this where he has power even over the wind and the sea?" So good call, Uncle Charlie. That is correct. Moving on. And they said one to another, "Come, let us cast lots that we may know for whose cause this trouble has come upon us." So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. When they said to him, "Please tell us, for whose cause is this trouble upon us? What is your occupation, and where do you come from? What is your country, and what people are you?" So he said to them, "I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made this sea and the dry land." Then the men were exceedingly afraid and said to him, "Why have you done this?" For the men knew that he fled from the presence of the Lord because he had told them. Then he said to them, "What shall we do to you that the sea may be calm for us?" For the sea was growing more tempestuous. And he said to them, "Pick me up and throw me into the sea. Then the sea will become calm for you, for I know that this great tempest is because of me." Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to return to land, but they could not, for the sea continued to grow more tempestuous against them. Okay, why do you think the guys didn't throw him overboard?
Yeah, he's a pretty religious guy. Yeah.
Does anyone know why they were reluctant to throw Jonah overboard?
Think they'd be afraid of his God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I love the critical thinking. Okay. Therefore, they cried out to the Lord and said, "We pray, O Lord, please do not let us perish for this man's life, and do not charge us with innocent blood. For you, O Lord, have done as it pleased you." So they picked up Jonah and threw him out into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging. And the men feared the Lord exceedingly and offered sacrifice to the Lord and took vows. So, right on, Shelley. I'm not really sure why the slides are cut off like that, guys. And I'm not sure why. I might have used my computer for so many different applications lately. So, let's get into the next verse. Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. So When we talk about a great fish, and we see that the Lord has prepared something specific for this moment, a lot of people have a hard time believing that this account is true and factual. I don't have a hard time believing it. I think God did make some special creatures specifically for this moment. The thing that was very unique to me is I didn't pick Jonah for any particular reason. I knew it was a little bit shorter. I knew he wanted to get into the prophets. But if you recall at the end of Job, God describes three rather unique creatures that resemble dinosaurs of some sort and dragons and things of that. So for me to then conceptualize that there is some large sea creature that God has reserved specifically to put Jonah in its belly, it's not real hard for me to follow up with that. And it wouldn't surprise me if it was something like this image. I was looking for something wild online, and when I saw this, it would not surprise me that it was something like this, you know? Then Jonah prayed to the Lord, his God, from the fish's belly. And he said, I cried out to the Lord because of my affliction, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice, for you cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the floods surrounded me. All your billows and your waves passed over me. Then I said, I have been cast out of your sight, yet I will look again toward your holy temple. The water surrounded me, even to my soul. The deep closed around me. Weeds were wrapped around my head. I went down to the moorings of the mountains. The earth with its bars closed behind me forever. Yet you have brought up my life from the pit. O Lord, my God, when my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer went up to you into your holy temple. Those who regard worthless idols forsake their own mercy, but I will sacrifice to you within the voice of thanksgiving. I will pay what I have vowed. Salvation is of the Lord. So I have this slide relatively black because I want you guys to, for a moment, to imagine what it would be like to be swallowed by a whale, where there seemingly is just enough air for you to breathe. You're wrapped in reeds and various other things that have been eaten in there, but imagine the darkness. Imagine the immense pressure that would be on you as this creature is swimming deeper and going up and down and all over the place. Imagine how terrifying that would be. You know, it'd be truly terrifying, you know? So then we get to Jonah chapter 2. So the Lord spoke to the fish and vomited Jonah onto dry land. Where do you think Jonah was vomited onto?
Beach or such?
A beach of such, but where do you think?
Back to his home.
I think Levi got it right. And we can
Isn't
look.
that where he was supposed to go
Yeah.
originally?
Yeah.
So
I believe that he's near the shores of Nineveh. Now, doesn't mean that it's not still a journey to get to it, because if we look at that map on where Nineveh was, along the coastline would still be a journey. But if his goal was to make it to Tarshish, which would be Spain, that's quite a distance from Jerusalem, he ended up right back on the shore, where seemingly he would have been at the port where he took off.
So he didn't go.
The fish brought him back. So, and let's get into it. Something's not right here. Are we now, was 10 the last verse in chapter 2?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so in chapter 3. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah the second time, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and preach to it the message that I tell you. So Jonah arose and went to Nineveh according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceedingly great city, a 3-day journey in extent. And Jonah began to enter the city on the first day's walk. Then he cried out and said, Yet 40 days and Nineveh shall be overthrown. So the people of Nineveh believed God, proclaimed a fast, and put on sackcloth from the greatest to the least of them. Then the word came to the king of Nineveh, and he arose from his throne and laid aside his robe, covered himself with sackcloth, and sat in ashes. And he caused it to be proclaimed and published throughout Nineveh by decree of the king and his nobles, saying, let neither man nor beast, herd nor flock taste anything. Do not let them eat or drink water, but let man and beast be covered with sackcloth and cry mightily to God. Yes, let everyone turn from his evil way and from the violence that is in his hands. Who can tell if God will turn and relent and turn away from his fierce anger so that we may not perish? Then God saw their works, that they turned from their evil way, and God relented from the disaster that he had said he would bring upon them, and he did not do it. This is where it gets kind of interesting. So this is only 4 chapters. A lot of the shows and videos and things like that are presented, they build a large backstory that doesn't seem to be there, but we can infer from the text. And that is that the Ninevites were like the enemies of Jerusalem because they were wicked, wicked people. That was why Jonah was so reluctant to go there, because he felt like they deserved the punishment that was due them. And we learn more about that here. But it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he became angry. So he prayed to the Lord and said, "Ah, Lord, was not this what I said when I was still in my country? Therefore I fled previously to Tarshish. For I know that you are a gracious and merciful God, slow to anger and abundant loving kindness, one who relents from doing harm. Therefore, now, O Lord, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live." So Jonah's so upset with the fact that God is merciful to the Ninevites that he wishes for death. It's crazy. Then the Lord said, "Is it right for you to be angry?" So Jonah went out of the city and sat on the east side of the city. There he made himself a shelter and sat under it in the shade till he might see what would become of the city. And the Lord God prepared a plant and made it come up over Jonah, that it might be shade for his head to deliver him from his misery. So Jonah was very grateful for the plant. Oh, I love this plant. You can see this image of this guy. Oh, big old smile. I love this plant. But as morning dawned the next day, God prepared a worm, and it so damaged the plant that it withered. And it happened when the sun arose that God prepared a vehement east wind, and the sun beat on Jonah's head, so that he grew faint. Then he wished death for himself and said, "It is better for me to die than to live." Then God said to Jonah, "Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?" And he said, It is right for me to be angry, even to death." But the Lord said, "You have had pity on the plant for which you have not labored, nor made it grow, which came up in a night and perished in a night. And should I not pity Nineveh, that great city, in which are more than 120,000 persons, who cannot discern between their right hand and their left, and much livestock?" And that's the end of it. And so I think we get number one, God has given Jonah just an amazing analogy. You're willing to die over the anger that you have about this plant that was providing you shade for a day. So is it right for you to be mad at me for wanting to preserve this city with 120,000 people who clearly don't know right from wrong? And it was Jonah's job to bring right from wrong. And that, guys, is it. That's all there is from Jonah. And there are a lot of individuals that have differing opinions and believe that this particular one of the book of the prophets is a hard pill to swallow because of the items that's described in it. A man being swallowed by a whale, because I think a lot of people think earthly. And they think about now, they don't think about these great beasts, and they can't handle the miraculous. But if the question were to come up is, how do you know that this account really happened? To me, it would need to be validated by someone special. And that's where I have some other references for you guys. So what does it mean when we have words in red?
God speaking.
They're Jesus.
Jesus, Lord.
Yeah.
Jesus is speaking it.
Jesus, yeah.
So let's read some of these words of Jesus in the New Testament. Then some of the scribes and Pharisees answered, saying, Teacher, we want to see a sign from you. But he answered and said to them, An evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign shall be given to it, except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. The men of Nineveh will rise up in the judgment, and this generation will condemn it with this generation and condemn it, because they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and indeed a greater than Jonah is here. We go a little bit further into Matthew, we see something again. And then the Pharisees and Sadducees came and testing him, asked him that he would show them a sign from heaven. And he answered and said unto them, When it is evening, you say, It will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and threatening. Hypocrites! You know how to discern the face of the sky, but you cannot discern the signs of the times? A wicked and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign shall be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. And he left them and departed. Let's skip on over to Luke chapter 11. And while the crowds were thickly gathered together, he began to say, This is an evil generation. It seeks a sign, and no sign will be given to it except the sign of Jonah the prophet. For as Jonah became a sign to the Ninevites, so also the Son of Man will be to this generation. The queen of the south will rise up in the judgment with the men of this generation and condemn them. For she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and indeed a greater than Solomon is here. The men of Nineveh will rise up in the judgment with this generation and condemn it. For they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and indeed a greater than Jonah is here. And so, what are you laughing at?
This way.
Oh my God. You look like Hawaii.
Okay, so
So
what better level of validation is there about the book of Jonah than Jesus himself referencing it? Not only referencing the fact that Jonah was a prophet and that Jonah came to Nineveh, but that Jonah was in the belly of a great fish for how long?
3 days.
And
3 nights.
3 nights.
3 nights.
And what's significant about that?
Christ was in the depths of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those types of instances where Jesus, if you got a problem with Jesus, you got bigger problems than I can help you with. You know what I mean? Because if you're just going to sit there and debate whether or not Jonah was the person and it was a real story that was told, and then, you know, say, I don't know if I buy that. And you say, well, Jesus is the one who said he validated the fact that he did these things. Yeah, I don't know. Still, you got bigger problems than worrying about Jonah. I'm telling you now. But on that note, that's it. This was a very short book. To me, it was a very fun one to put together. The imagery was real fun. And it tied in to me really, really well to our study of, or the end of, whatchamacallit? The book of Job. Yeah.
Hey, Tony Evans said that you gotta believe in the supernatural.
You have to.